In this video help, what we're going to do is be covering the employee screens. Let's start out by looking at the navigation menu to see where we're at and what's covered in this area. The employee screen which you're now in also includes popovers for the travel portal, employee expense portal, meeting portal, and then you go to the employee list view, which will list all the individual employees, the employee list portal, which is the individual portal for the individual employees. Then the main menu where we have video help that explains all the different screens. And then a business calendar, which is the secondary calendar where you actually manage items that are interior to your business, scheduling of meetings inside or internal, and keeping track of different events that you want just employees to be aware of. Let's talk a little bit about the overview of employees and why they're organized the way they are. There's an individual record for each employee within the company. That's the principal reason for this screen and the information that's being tracked in here. But if you consider what's going on with your CRM processing and management, there are some key things about the employee that makes this a little different the way it functions than a regular CRM app that we've used in the past or I offer. What this application does is it allows one person to manage the individual CRM issues that are related to clients and employees, or this application can be used by one employee who is managing other employees or making CRM contacts as a part or a function with the marketing group or sales to include tracking of information that they have between the client and the employee, meaning that an employee themselves can use this application individually on their own iPad or iPhone and use information for both travel planning, travel expenses, meetings, and then email tracking of all the contact information they have with the client. An email can include messages and messaging and other things because it does have information for comments that you can put in that are related to any kind of contact that individual employee has. Now, if you use this in the two different ways, you're going to have two ways that you're going to track the information. If you have one person managing all the employee information, then the employees themselves have to transmit that information to that person to be captured. If you're using it in the secondary way where the employee is the one who's driving the information and then takes that information and sends it from here into that main organizational thing, they can do it in two ways. This application can be upgraded to be a cloud version on a cloud server where it's hosted, and then all the employees and all the people that might be interested in the marketing group can contact that one server and put in information, and that would require a login for each individual that's working with the application as a multi-user environment. So there's a lot of ways this can be used. It's just the way that you see in your own company that this can be implemented. So let's look a little bit about this application in the employee screen. There is an automatically added ID for each employee that is added to this database. They have their own record and they have their own ID. Their name is added. Their position in the company is added. This is all information that is added on this screen as you're building the information. You do that by adding an employee. Now there's an add button in both locations here and here, but I just made it a little easier for you to use by putting it on the main screen. Within the information for the employee themselves, you're looking at contact information and also other information that's related to this client and how they're functioning within the organization. For example, you may want to have a location based on the address that you put into the database if you have to contact this person, if they're not right in the employee building where they're located for the location. So the location is a map that will allow you to find out where that particular employee is located. The next thing is when you're putting in the information, you're looking at the employee start date, the department they're in, their staff supervisor, the hours they work. Their work location would be the location like a building or a specific location that may be within the city or outside of the city that where your main offices are located. You would have their office number, the actual physical location. For example, it might be room 29 or someplace located within a building that you can identify where if you have to contact them where they're at. Now, in large companies, this is critical because there may be new employees being put in or existing employees that are moving around in the building, and this gives somebody the knowledge to know where to find them if they need to find them. Then there's a family context information where their family is indicated here, and family notes. This is if they have to contact a company for some reason. In the world we're in today, this can be a situation where somebody is out of touch and you need to be able to contact their family if there's some kind of an incident or issue that you have to contact the family. Their home address, their home email, the status of the employee, whether they're active or not active or terminated. This is important for the office administrations people to understand what the latest status is for this person. Things about the benefit package are for more of an administrative type of person that is looking at this information and wants to understand if this person has, say like for example, if they're traveling overseas, do they have overseas medical? Do they have evacuation information if they have to be evacuated for medical reasons, or any other information that's pertinent to that person in their travels? There is also a comment area that is a general comment area for the employee information. This is new items and information that's related to that particular employee. Now, what's the next portion of this are child screens that are also in the drop-down menu. You'll see these here like we just explained, but these are popovers, and what the popovers do is they condense this information and allow you to create records in the child records from the main employee screen. This particular one is the travel schedule. What this does is it has a portal. It'll add information for each travel this person is going on, and it captures the information from the travel date, the time, the end time when they return, expected to return, the type of travel it is, and this can be varied depending upon the employee. Whenever you add stuff in a field and it extends beyond the bottom of the field, it will drop down when you click on it to add the other information if you need to view it. This is if they're traveling and they're using their own vehicle and they have a start odometer reading and a stop one. This is where they're being reimbursed for the miles that they travel, and when they do their travel report. The record identifies the actual ID for the travel, which is related directly to the main record, the parent record for the employee. So this is employee number 1, and that way if you see on the actual records that you're viewing the number 1, you can relate that back to the employee ID number. Then this is the air travel. Air travel is from and to, the booking date, who was used to book it, is the flight confirmed or pending, and these are drop downs that help you to find information as far as relation to the actual booking and information. Things like airlines could be anybody, so those are just type ins, and the same thing, and the actual airline that it's being flown with. You can go to the travel portal, which has the individual record for this. If you go to the portal record, you can see more information in that portal record as far as viewable area. For example, if there's a narrative that runs over, that field will show all the information. You have their flight number, the departure gate if you know it, the departure time, you have that, the airport they're leaving from, the arriving airport, and the arrival time. Now, this information is just the basic information for somebody to schedule their own or have somebody schedule their flights for them, like your secretary or somebody that does it as a rule in your office and does all the travel for people. Now, for the individual who's traveling, if they have this application, this gives them all the information that they need to know to make the travel and so forth. Let's go back over and look at the next one, which covers the next level of the information that you're using for travel, which is each expense item that the person is going to be putting on their travel report. It's summarized at the top of the screen. It identifies the employee information as far as who it is. It has, again, the employee ID. It has the expense date, expense type, and this is a drop-down where you have information that you can add in here. Now, these individual things like this, you have a type expense thing that you can go to that screen and add additional things in this list. This is not the limiting factor in the list. There's a number of items in here that you can see, but you can add additional ones if you need to. Expense paid to, in other words, if this is a payment type of a situation, this is in this case, budget rental car was a rental car that they had, and the expense amount of $143.90 was added. who is it reported to? In other words, this would be the next level of person that this employee has presented that information in a travel expense report to this person. The expense reimbursement is the amount that was expected, and the amount of the balance. If this is what's paid and they're reimbursed, you put it here, and this reduces the amount over here, which might be a balance owed, and that takes the information out of there. Now, the way these records are set up, as you're adding the record here for the expense date, the next newest one will come to the top after you add it in this area. So for example, if I put March 24th in here for the next travel, then that will come to the top of the list and this one will be dropped down. If you wanted to go all the way to the bottom because you have a ton of expense items in here, you go on this button right here and say last record, and what it'll do is it'll expose this view right here so you can add new information, and you can see there's some default indicators of what's supposed to go in this field. For example, expense type is select a type from a drop down, and who received the payment and so forth, who is accepting the report. So it's assisting you to understand who is doing what and how. And this is paid to employees, so it makes it very simple to understand what's going on in the screen. Let's go to the next thing, which is the meeting planner. Now, obviously, this has two levels of functionality, like we said. If you're using this in a multi-user environment, this can be scheduled by other employees or supervisors or the main administrative manager. Or the individual employee has it on his own, either a laptop or an iPad or an iPhone, where they can add their own information within a meeting, and then they put in there the meeting name, the date, the location, the time, the information for the agenda, who's going to actually present what in this meeting from your own company, or you may even have a secondary one where you have expected things that the company you're visiting has in their agenda. You can put the people from your company who have attended, the action items that came out of the meeting as far as what they're going to have to do as far as functions or things that they have to present information or capture information and then react to it and do something with it. And then you have meeting notes that are general notes. For example, if there was something that came up in the meeting that you want to remind yourself that you jotted down as reminders about typical things like if somebody said something in the meeting and you want to do some research about it and then answer back to them. It's not a real action item in this particular case where you have to do it, but you may want to have this as information that you look into so that you have that reference information in addition. Because these are in portals, they scroll. So you can add as many records as you want in here, and like the last one we talked about, if you want to go to the last record, you click on this button where you're going to be entering in a bare one that has not got data in it at that time, where you can start it. Or you can go to the portal record once you create the record and review all this information where the fields have a little bit more size so they're easier to read. And then, of course, if you need to, you can always scroll down to the next record that's in the record system. So I go down, and then you'd see it now within the iPad or iPhone. You just use a finger scroll, and it'll scroll from area to area. Be aware that there's a little white area at the edge of the screen for this. What happens is if you're in the iPad or iPhone and you're scrolling, if you're scrolling here, you can't scroll the entire screen, and that's why there's a last button. But nevertheless, if there's a white area over here to the side, you can put your finger here and you can slide up and down and see the entire scroll area go, and then get also back to the top of the screen. If you need to go to the top of the screen, you can go ahead and just scroll on the white area at the right-hand side. Let's talk a little bit about Email Manager. The Email Manager has two pieces of information. You have one that's one where you can actually send an email. Now this is kind of interesting how this works. You have Google as the first screen that came up, but what that actually was is that it was put in, and you have to include the http:// and then the URL wherever you're going to put it to be in the screen. But if you click on this, you're going to see it has a number of them already included in here. So what this refers to is when you have an email list to edit, what you're doing is your email locations that you may want to be going to are added in this screen. You add a new email. Now in this case, if you're adding an email, it can open a browser, and those are browser-bound applications that are things that you can go to within the internet. The other ones, for example, if you're on a Mac or a PC, maybe, for example, it could be Outlook or it could be Google Mail, for example, or Gmail, where you want to have the URL already in here so that all you have to do is to click on and go back to the location where we're at under Employee. And when you're in this screen, that gives you the drop-down list here. So for example, if I click in, drop down, and say, for example, I want to go to Outlook, I just click on it, I wait a second, and now I'm in Outlook. And I can log in and then go ahead and send email. Now, this allows you to also do something else. For example, over here under the email tracker, there is a portal in here. If you preset the information that you want to put in your email and edit it and make sure that it's correct and has everything you want to put in it, you have the purpose of the email answer back when somebody actually answers you back that you might have taken from a prior email. You can refer to that and then go to the next level, and how are you going to answer that email? And then there's email notes that are not going to go back into another email, but they're prompts of information that you want to keep that are related to both the purpose for sending the email information and the answer back information that you have in here. It also includes the area like the employee ID, the date the email was sent, it was sent by, and it was emailed, the title of that name of the email, and then the email status, which is a drop down. And again, this can be changed in the email status screen, where you can add additional things in here that will be used to status the email that you're working with at that time. You also can go to the portal and see the information in a larger view form for individual records. And also with each portal, when you go to it, you can use the do action to do a find based on either a date, the name, the test, and that is true for any of the expenses and stuff like that. Within the portal, you can do finds, but you cannot do them within this screen on a portal record itself. So that pretty well takes care of the individual items for the employee information. If you have any questions or need assistance, go ahead and contact us at the developer support. We're going to be going next to the individual subscreens and view what they look like and the other information for the balance of the application in the next tutorial. Thank you.